services for the plant-based pizza application. Let's come back to this because I was talking all through this and then nobody can actually see it, which is excellent. So here is the actual application in its entirety. The QR code that you could see that you now can't see, which I'm going to post in the comments. The GitHub repo. So here is the actual GitHub repo where all this code is. This is something I've been working on for quite a while now. It's like a pizza restaurant. I love pizza. Everybody loves pizza. Sorry, Luca, if you're watching. There may be some non-Italian looking pizza knocking around. And the kind of backend is a little bit contrived, but it's made up of 7 or so different services. Some written in .NET, some written in Java, some written in Node. In the future, there's going to be some written in Rust and some written in Go, and maybe even some written in Python if I can bring myself to actually write some Python code. We'll see how that goes in the future. Maybe I ask Hater. Hater will come and help me. But anyway, and these are all linked together. All the services follow broadly the same structure. So there's a Fargate, a container within a Fargate, some kind of database. There's a mix of Dynamo, of MongoDB Atlas, of Postgres using Neon. We'll talk about later. But for today, we're going to be focusing on this kitchen service, and it's the kitchen service that actually handles all of the stuff to do with the kitchen, actually making pizzas, making orders, creating yummy things for people to eat. And the kitchen service reacts to events that the order service publishes. So once an order has been confirmed, people are happy, they publish that order confirmed event, and then the kitchen service is going to react to that, store that in the database ready to be prepared, and then the actual people in the kitchen can actually go through and make the order. They can prepare it, they can get it baked, they can quality check it, they can do all these different things with that order. And one of the interesting things about serverless applications is that it's actually, if we look at what's going on here, to try and test some of this locally, like if you're used to integration testing applications in a different way, you might actually spin everything up locally. Start a lot of Docker containers, you know, Docker compose file, spin everything up, run tests against that local running instance, spin everything down and start again. But when we're using all these managed services, all these serverless services, that does get a little bit more difficult. It's kind of tricky to emulate API gateway to Lambda to DynamoDB, then a publish to an event bridge to SQS, back to another Lambda function, and to do all that locally in a way that actually mimics how the cloud is actually going to work. So when it comes to testing these kinds of applications, testing in the cloud is a really, really important thing to do. So that's what we're going to try and do on this stream. Now that you can actually see me and you can actually see my screen, we're going to try to at least add some tests to this serverless Node.js application. Now, of course, I am not a Node.js developer. For anyone who knows me, I come from a .NET background, so this could be just as much carnage as you saw with me trying to get the stream working in the first place. So here's the actual application itself. These, you can see the 8 items. It's not a very particularly big pizza restaurant at the minute. There's not an awful lot of choice. But if I can, I think I should already be logged in. Yeah, I'm already logged in. So I can add, what I want. I'm not logged in. Interesting. You also can't laugh at my UI skills because I am not a UI developer. And let me just open up Postman to actually grab my set of credentials. Account register. Go. There's an email. And I can add a password. And that should then log me in, and I can now go off and actually interact with this thing to actually go and create some. There we go. Now we're getting there. So we can actually start to add things. Let's add a veggie deluxe as well. A lot of canned Dr. Pepper, kind of Fanta. I can go off and submit that order. I can go and have a look at the list of all my orders that are available. You see the one that I've just created, 14, 15, 20 with 4 items. Go and have a look at that order. And it's got as far as payment successful. This is a really wonderful pizza restaurant because you don't actually need to pay for anything. Things are just successfully paid for. That just happens automatically in the background. It's magical. So this is actually where the kitchen service would typically kick in. So the kitchen service is going to kick in here to actually then go off and allow someone to go and create this order. So the first thing that the kitchen service needs to react to is an order confirmed event. And if we look at the CDK code now, all of this uses the AWS CDK, and the CDK language used is matched up to the language of the actual service. So the .NET services use .NET CDK, Java services, Java CDK, Node services, Node CDK. And there's a whole bunch of shared resources. So things like VPCs, application load balancers, secrets, JWT secret keys. Let's try not to expose them on the live stream. Event buses, all of this stuff is all loaded in from a shared infrastructure. So all of this is pre-deployed. So the event bridge already exists, the ALBs already exist. And then these already configured resources are used to do a bunch of things. So we create our DynamoDB table, and then the actual API and the background workers, the event handlers, are separated into two separate level 3 constructs. And this just makes things a little bit cleaner. This is a pattern that I really like with the CDK. So then I've got my API, and my API then contains all of my different Lambda functions. There's about 8 different API endpoints, and then also my background workers, which are my for handling my events. So you see I've got a queue here, a queue that's mapped up to the orders.plant-based-pizza event source and my order.order-confirmed event. So all of the events that come in are going to first hit an SQS queue, and then Lambda's wired up to that SQS queue. So whenever an order confirmed event is published, it's going to land on this order submitted event queue. And then we've got a Lambda function that's going to pull off and actually work with that. So how do we go about integration testing serverless applications? Well, one of the benefits, I suppose, I always like about serverless is that it's actually really easy to spin up, tear down, do anything you want with different resources. So although at the minute we've got this main stack, and it's this stack that's actually creating the actual production resources, because all these resources are really easy to spin up and spin down, and they are pay-per-use, actually, as part of the integration tests, I'm going to create an entire set of resources. I'm going to create everything. But I'm actually going to do that in a slightly different stack. And why I'm going to do that will be relevant and will make sense in just a second. So let's actually, tell you what, let's be lazy. Let's actually just take an entire copy of my current production stack, and I'm going to rename that to integration stack. Integration test stack. Let's go with that. And the reason I'm going to do that is because actually some of these resources I want to kind of sub out when I'm running my integration tests. So some of this stuff I want to keep. I want to use the same VPC. I'm probably going to sub out the ALB for an API gateway. We'll come back to that in just a second. My secrets I want to keep the same. I still want to hold my observability. I still want to all see this in the back end. But what actually, I don't think that's actually being used. Let's just delete that, see what happens. Where is that being used? Interesting. The shared props. I don't think that's being used anywhere. Let's leave it in just for a minute. The important one really though, because the crux of this kitchen service doing something is when an event is published onto the event bus. But I want to test just this service on its own. I don't want to have to rely on an order going through the order service. Tim, this is a GitHub repo that I just open sourced yesterday. So you can go and have a look at the GitHub repo. I didn't want to do kind of I may do a from scratch video in a little while of how to set these projects up from scratch. But this is a pre-existing application that already exists. The code's on GitHub. Chat should be there. The link should be there in the YouTube chat. So what we're doing today is we're going to add some integration tests to this existing application. So we've got this event bus at the minute that's being pulled in from the shared bus, and this is the bus that every single event is publishing events to. But like I said, we don't want to necessarily rely on the order service to actually do something. So what we're actually going to do as part of these tests is we're going to actually create our own event bus. Create a new event bus, and I'm going to call this bus kitchen service test bus. I don't think we need any props. Let's just give it a name. Kitchen service dot test. And actually, I'm gonna do something else here. So I've got a version parameter here, and I'm actually going to use that version parameter. Just change that out for this all lowercase kitchen service, and then I'm actually going to include the version number in that event bridge name. So this means if I've got 2, 3, 4, 5 instances of my CI/CD pipelines running at the same time, all the buses are going to get a different name. So they're going to get a distinct name. When I run this locally, I can then override that to be something custom locally on my machine. So I've got a custom bus now. And what this means is as part of my tests, I can now publish an event onto this custom event bus as part of my test run. And that means I can simulate an already confirmed event without actually having the order service to actually go off and create a lot of things. Create a lot of different things for the order react to. Anybody can this live stream, so maybe some feeling you're just joining now. You missed a glimpse of the and we're now going live. So Tim, just give me a shout if that will get any better with the mic. We'll see how we go from here. So I've now got my custom event bus for, and because although I'm duplicating a lot of stuff here, actually the crux of my actual application code, my actual API, and my actual background workers, these are the actual Lambda functions configuration, however wired together. That's using that same L3 construct, which means that I'm not necessarily duplicating application code. I'm just duplicating the configuration for how this is all going to get wired together. So I'm going to do the same thing with my DynamoDB table actually as well here, because my table, I want to give my table a specific name, and I want to call my table kitchen integration test, and then I'm going to suffix in that version name again, so that we get a different, if there's multiple versions of this, multiple pipelines running at the same time, we can get that same different tables for them. And I'm just going to pop it in there as well. And then the next thing this is doing, so the other shared resources we've got is actually the main application backend uses an application load balancer. So because we've got, hey, thanks Tim. Hi Ben, nice to see you. Hello. So because we've got some Fargate, some Lambda, some different services on different places, there's actually a single shared application load balancer that's the single entry point for this backend. That's where the custom DNS is. That's where all that configuration happens. But when I'm running my tests, I don't want to be wiring up to that actual real application load balancer. But one of the beauties of serverless is that I can dynamically spin up and tear down resources. So what I'm actually going to try and do as part of my test stack is I'm actually going to dynamically spin up an API gateway on the fly. And this is where things could get a little bit crazy and a little bit interesting. But let's see what happens. So I'm my shared props. What's going on in these shared props? So I've got an ALB listener. I wonder if, let's try this first. This might get a little bit messy, but we'll try something else. So we're going to try passing in an ALB listener and an API gateway. API. What is the CDK construct? HTTP API, I think. Hey, I think this is the right way to do it. Could be empty in the CDK. Who knows? Maybe that will work. Maybe that won't. And then I'm going to switch that out for API props. So now I've got the ability to pass dynamically either an application load balancer or an API gateway into my API props. And of course, this is all going to break. So I want to set my API props, and here I'm going to add API gateway resource. And then I've actually broken my main stack because if I go back to my CDK, where's my CDK code? Kitchen stack. There we go. This is going to be broken as well, so let's just change that. Do API props ALP. How do you do that in TypeScript? Let's just do. I'm sure there must be a way. If anybody knows the way to kind of say this is an optional parameter in TypeScript, just let me know, because I'm sure there's a better way than force setting it into undefined. But let's see what happens. Anyway, so back to my integration test now. So my integration tests is going to be my load balancer that's going to be undefined. And my API is going to be a new API. So let's create const HTTP API equals new HTTP. Oh, not that. HTTP API. This kitchen integration test API. Open that up. And I don't actually think I need anything else in there. And let's set my API gateway to that HTTP API. So now I can pass around either an API gateway or an application load balancer. I feel this is going to get messy, but let's see where we get to. Close that down for the minute. And let's come into our actual API definition now. And this is all it's only really the API that's causing us a challenge here, because the background workers are just reacting to an event. The background worker takes an event bus as one of the properties. I can just pass in a dynamic event bus. I can just switch out the shared event bus that everybody publishes to for a temporary event bus when I'm running my integration tests. So actually, the background workers are kind of okay. They're going to share a table. So it's really this API stack. And this is where I feel things might get a little bit complicated. So what have we got going on here? That's right. I've got if you go and have a look at the application code, I've got a whole bunch of kind of custom constructs. And these are kind of custom constructs to add a whole bunch of functionality. One is they use custom ES build files to actually package up the application. This is related to some Datadog stuff that I'll probably talk about in another stream. And it also maps up some of the kind of core different things for Datadog to work correctly. So some environment variables, some different SSM access to be able to access API keys, and it's also wiring up. Aha, interesting. So I've got this API construct that then passes in a path and a method. Interesting. Anthony, yes, that is exactly what we're doing today. So what I'm trying to get at is creating integration tests. So dynamically creating resources, running the test, and then tearing them down again, without duplicating a whole lot of code. So what we're trying to do now is, normally this uses an application load balancer for its actual API, but I'm trying to sub that out dynamically for API gateway, so that we can spin it up and tear it down without kind of interrupting with the real load balancer, if you will. So this, I've already got a path and a method. Interesting. So if I look at my Lambda function construct, what is this doing at the minute? So it's creating an application target group, creating a Lambda target. Okay, so we want to say if props shared props.api props. Gosh, does not equal undefined. And I probably need to put some checks in here at some point to make sure that this is always set if it's not an integration test. I'm just going to make a little note of that. To do check to make sure this value is set. If not, an integration test. Just to make sure. SF. I'm assuming you mean serverless framework, Anthony, by SF. Yeah, there's nothing else you could mean. Yeah, so CDK, I'm a big fan of the CDK. I used to be all in on SAM, actually. AWS SAM, which is another YAML-esque way of doing serverless stuff. But actually, I think more and more I'm starting to love CDK, just because I could use the same programming language for everything, and I don't have to use LAML. LAML's a new one. I don't have to use YAML, and nobody really likes YAML, do they? So. Okay, so we've got our API props. So if the load balancer is passed in, then we're going to wire things up to the load balancer. And then we can say if props.shared props.api props.api gateway does not equal undefined, Then we want to actually create an API. I can't actually remember. CDK, AWS, CDK, HTTP API, Lambda. I was doing something with this just earlier today, actually. Okay. This could be nice. Let's import that integration. And then, so I've got my function already. This could be quite nice, actually. Let's work. So comp Lambda integration. Now, one of the weird and interesting things about the AWS CDK is that I think is that a construct, an ID. So everything's going to have a dynamic ID, which means I'm going to have to somehow. I can't type Lambda integration. I'm just going to have to dynamically. There we go. So what have I got? Function name. So that's going to have to be a dynamic name. If you've got multiple resources in the CDK with the same ID, well, this is CloudFormation in general, it's going to not be happy. So when I give my resource an ID in the CDK, if I pass in my function name, that'll ensure that's unique. And then I want to pass in this dot function. So I've got my Lambda integration. I've already got my API gateway, and then I should be able to do props.shared props, API props. Gosh, this is getting a bit involved. We'll tidy this up later. So now I've added my roots. Add roots. What does it take? A path. The path's just a string. Props. Path. Hey. Props. This is going to be too easy, isn't it? No, this isn't going to work. Props.methods. Props.methods. Yeah, that'd be too easy, wouldn't it? Type string is not assignable to type HTTP method. Okay. Let's just try. Let's just create another function. Get HTTP method from string. I'm going to pass in method as string. And then I want to return a HTTP method. I wonder if we actually do this. Pass in a string away. Return. Why can I find name method? Am I being an idiot? Constructor, scope, construct. Oh wait, I'm in the wrong scope. There we go. Yes. So, and then switch is the thing, isn't it? Method. Okay. Let HTTP methods equal empty array. That's going to be array of HTTP method. And then I want to, how do you do a for each? Type method dot for each. I don't want a map. I think I want a map. Methods.map. So for each method gets passed in, then I'm going to need a switch on that method. And I want an uppercase just to make things a little bit easier. Why are you angry at me? Oh, you need brackets. Okay. Case get. Then I want to return HTTP method get. Wait, I think I can make it easier, can't I? Is this going to work? Return. Damn you. Why is that not happy? HTTP method get undefined. Okay, let's try just adding the rest of the different options. So we've got a post, put, delete. What else is in here? Delete, get, head. uses head. Options. Delete get head options patch. Okay, cool. Put delete head options patch. Format that, make it look a little bit nicer. So now I've got my HTTP methods. Why is that not type HTTP method? Why does it think there's an undefined? Is that because I'm not handling? How do I undo default? I start writing .NET. This is wonderful. Return. What happens if I just do? Let's just return a get as a default. See what happens. Okay, so if I return a get as a default, so throw unknown method. Cool. So we can get. Oh gosh, get post put delete head option patch. Okay, we're getting somewhere. So now I can say when I add my route to my API gateway, I want to get HTTP methods from string props dot methods. Hey, look at that. Lambda integration. Okay, so now this should hopefully, when I set my application load balancer, when I set my API gateway even, it should just work. Should just work. My favorite ever line in software development. So let's have a look at our integration stack again now. So when I create my shared props, so I've got my integration test stack. So I still need to pull in my VPC. Do I need my VPC anymore? I don't think I do. API gateway. Yeah, I don't think I need that. I still want my Datadog configuration, so I get some observability. I still want my JWT. I've got my brand new event bridge, my Datadog configuration. Still want my DynamoDB table. Still want my HTTP API. I wonder if I could make that optionally undefined. This might make a mess of things. This is going to be deployed into the same resource, so am I not? I think I'm just overcomplicating things here. Let's just leave all that in for the minute. Let's not complicate too much. So that's all going to get pulled in. I've got an env and I've got a commit hash. Okay, so the final thing I need to do is in my bin folder, I actually need to create const integration test stack. So now I've got kitchen. Now I've got two separate stacks in my CDK code. Integration test stack. Okay, so now I can actually go off and create my integration stack. So if I come back to my terminal window now, my front end's still running. We don't want that anymore. Let's pizza.kitchen.node. So now that if I try and run a CDK synth, this should, he says, fail. Cannot find module ES build. Okay, that's not good. Let's just upgrade the CDK first. Maybe I need to do a npm stop. Okay, so if I do a CDK synth, this should fail because I've now got multiple stacks and it doesn't know which one to deploy. There we go. Supply a stack ID. So the CDK is kind of smart enough, actually, which is kind of nice to know that I'm now defining multiple stacks and it doesn't. So it's not, tell a lie. It synthesized both of them. If I try to deploy it, I think it's then going to, at risk of breaking everything. Let's see what happens. So when I deploy this, it should ask me which stack I want to deploy. There we go. Perfect. So because I've now got multiple stacks, I can either specify --all and deploy all of the stacks. Of course, I don't want to do that. I want to just deploy my integration stack. So let's copy that and go CDK deploy kitchen integration stack. Actually, before I do that, I just want to set a couple of environment variables. So I've got a version which is being set to the commit hash. So export commit hash equal, let's just call J. I'll give it my initials, and I want to do the same with the environment. So export m equal J. That's going to deploy everything to a new, so the commit hash would obviously be your version number. So that's a good way of actually taking your commit hash right through into your infrastructure and actually including that in the things that you deploy. And then, of course, my environment is my initials. And I've still not specified the stack to deploy. Kitchen integration stack. Okay, let's see what happens. This might take a little while because it's going to have to deploy everything first time around. Ooh, this is promising. Background worker, kitchen API. It's creating. Oh gosh, that looks like a lot of permissions. Kitchen data. So it's just all my functions. What's the worst that could happen? So this is one of the really nice things about the CDK. And I think sometimes things can get a little bit messy with having L3 constructs and constructs inside constructs inside construct. But I think as long as you use them with care, it actually makes your code quite legible. So if you come in and have a look at my actual application stack, I'm just going to keep my eye on this to make that it's actually going, but it looks promising. So when you actually come and look at my actual stack, you see I've got an event bridge, I've got a table, and then I've got some shared properties and an API and background workers. And I really like LP constructs for this kind of thing. So inside this stack, I've got an API and I've got some background workers. Now I could probably tidy a whole bunch of this up a little bit, make it a little bit cleaner. But because I've got this definition for an API and a definition for a background worker, and I can pass in all these different values, I could dynamically pass in a different bus or a different table or a different authentication key if I wanted to. And I'm going to have to do that in a minute, actually, because I've got authentication here. But because we can do all these things dynamically, it allows you to then sub and change things out. So I've got my kitchen stack, which is my actual production deployment. And then I've got my integration test stack, which is, there is quite a bit of code duplication in a minute. We'll probably tidy that up a little bit later. Oh, this is looking promising. It's actually, if this works first time, I will be amazed. Let's go and have a look at API gateway. Dun, 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 dun. Hey, we're getting something. We've got endpoints. This is promising. This is promising. Oh, it's done. Well, I never. So we've got an integration test stack. Well, that was unexpected, but nice. So let's have a look now. So we've got all these in. Let's try and actually hit one of these endpoints. Where has Paul gone? Check. Not going to expose something I shouldn't. And bring this back over here. So I probably need to add this to the GitHub repo. Actually, I've got a whole Postman collection for all the different endpoints. And these are all wired up at the minute to use a lot of variables. So I'm just going to grab my, where is it? Stages, default. Let's just grab that. So theoretically, if I come back to Postman and I sub that out for that and hit that endpoint, this is promising. 4L1 unauthorized. Fantastic. That looks like it actually works straight off the bat. Would you look at that? So let's just have a look. APM traces. I don't want M, I want MJ. Hey, would you look at that? So I've actually got a trace and I've got some things that happened. And I've got some logs. And I got a token expired error, which means I've just used a JWT that has expired. But it's made it as far as the Lambda function, which is awesome. So one of the other things about the actual application code that's going on here, I suppose, is that there's a separate service. If I come back to the GitHub repo, there's a separate service, this account service that manages all user credentials. And then there's a shared JWT secret that's used to generate the JWT. And then all of the other services can just validate that same JWT. So in my actual Lambda application code for my Node application, if I look at my Lambda functions and that get new endpoint that I've just called, the first thing that all of the handlers do is to call this authorized request. and I want to authorize to make sure that only staff and administrators can use these endpoints. Remember, this is the API for the kitchen to use. You don't want the person who comes and places their order to be able to interact with the kitchen. So there's only staff and only administrators that are allowed to use this endpoint. So if I go back to Postman now, I'm just going to move that over to my other screen while I just log in, generate myself a JWT, and I've got a JWT now. Update that over here. Staff application token. And then if I bring my Postman window back over, and if I hit that same endpoint again, I now get a 200. Okay, so there's nothing in this integration test stack. Obviously, we've not actually done anything yet. So there's no orders, there's no new orders because this is a brand new stack that has just been deployed. But we now have a working integration test API, which is fantastic. So now we're actually at a point where we can come and write some tests because we've got all this test infrastructure. If I just go off to CloudFormation, we've got a whole bunch of different things. We've got some resources in here. We've got an event bus we can publish events to. We've got an API, and we've got some tables and some background workers. So the first test I'm going to want to write is one that actually tests my event publishing. So what I'm actually going to do now, because I've got that completely new event bus that's only now used for my integration tests, I can just publish events into that bus as much as I want. It doesn't matter if there's any other services. There's no other services that are going to be interacting with that. So I can just go off and publish an event. And I've actually got a sample event here. So let's actually see what we can do. Let's just try publishing this event onto that event bus and see what happens. So if I go off to Eventbridge, rules. So you see I've got my main bus, plant-based pizza events, and then I've got kitchenservice.je, and you can also see I've probably been testing the order service at some point because I've got a test.orders.je. So I'm going to go to my kitchen service, and let's just have a look at the rule that was created. So it's looking for the order confirmed event from the orders.plantbased pizza source. Okay, so if I go back to my buses, kitchen service, send events. So the detail of my event is going to this. So I'm actually using the cloud events specification here. There's probably a whole other video on that at some point about event schemas and event schema management. So just know for the moment that this is what's called cloud events. Let's go and have a look at that. So cloud events is a specification for describing event data in a common way. If you haven't heard of it, it's just a really cool way to just make sure you've got some kind of defined schema on all your events, and it's used across the board at Plant-Based Pizza, which was kind of interesting to set up because there's SDKs, and the SDKs are strongly typed. Well, not for JavaScript, because JavaScript is a crazy language where you don't have types. But for .NET and Java, it was a little bit painful. So I'm going to publish an event now. I'm going to publish an event onto this sample event bus, this integration test event bus that I've just created. So orders.plantbased pizza is my source, order confirmed, and then there's my actual event payload. And if I hit send, that has now hit my event bus, which should hopefully mean that theoretically, I should just start getting some traces in here. It should also mean that if I go and look at my new events, I have a new event. Woohoo! Look at that. So I've now got, this is going surprisingly well. So I can now publish events onto that event bus. This is an integration test event bus, and it comes through into my integration test service. And remember, this is all wired up to API Gateway. If I was to actually substitute that out and put my main API URL back in, there are some. So there are some. This is my actual main API. But let's go back to my integration test one. So I can now integration test against some completely independent resources. I can spin these up, I can shut them down again, and I can do all that on the fly as part of my integration tests. Let's just have a look at my tracing. Look at that. Gosh, there's quite a bit of stuff going on there. Let's ignore that for the minute and come back to testing. So we've got the ability to write tests now. Let's actually see what else we can do with this. Well, that's kind of weird. Seems like the camera doesn't want to work. And then let's camera. Camera usually is also see my screen. The camera isn't working. Bam, ba, ba, ba. It'd be too easy if this all just worked. Okay, there we go. Technical glitch resolved. Don't know what happened then. But let's get back to it. Yes, so wait. So we've got events publishing onto an event bus now. We've got an integration test stack, which we can use for running tests against. Where's it gone? So now let's actually start writing some tests. And this relies on me remembering how to write tests in Node. So I'm going to create a new folder called tests. Oh, look at that icon. That's a nice icon. And I've got some examples actually somewhere. I think maybe in my authorization. Okay, so let's call this integration test.ts. Is that right? .test.ts. Okay, I'm just going to copy that. Don't want my authorizer. Don't want that. I want my test still. So as part of the test that we're going to run, we're actually going to publish an event onto EventBridge. Why is that not? There we go. Can everyone still hear me okay on the stream, by the way? Just to make sure that my technical glitch is actually resolved, or if I'm talking to the void. If you can't hear me, just drop a message in the chat. That'd be awesome. So we're going to describe test publish of when order confirmed event. I want to test describe event. Naming things is hard. I want to test when order confirmed event publishes should create new kitchen request. So we're going to need the EventBridge SDK for this to work. And once we have the EventBridge SDK, then we can go off and actually do some stuff. So, yeah, the CDK is awesome, Daryl. It's really quite cool. Like I said, I used to do a lot of SAM. I've done Terraform stuff in the past actually. But CDK is my absolute go-to now. It's a bit more involved in terms of like some of the niceties of SAM, where you can just do like, I want an event, I want an API, and I want it to be this route, and it maps everything together. some of that's kind of nice. But you've still got all like the policy stuff, so you can do like dynamodb.grant read and grant reads to a function. So if we look at my API, for example, so I can say my table, I want to grant read to this photo, I want to grant read to this function. So there are some niceties, but then the actual wiring up of a function I find can be a little bit more involved sometimes. But anyway, const event bridge client equals new event bridge. Is that right? Yeah. Create an event bridge client, and I've got that. So what I want to do, arrange, act, assert. So let's just say expect true to equal true. The best test ever, the test that will never fail. Huh? Expected one argument. Expect dot to be. I see. Expected true to be true. I love it. Maybe everyone should write integration tests like this. Tests that never fail. What could possibly go wrong? So then I also want to find my event to publish. So I've already got this sample event. So I want to actually sample event payload. And I want to actually, is it FS? How do I read from the file system? How do I read from the file system in Node? Read JSON file from the file system in Node. I should really install some kind of helper to help me with this. Importing JSON file in TypeScript. This is from 2018. That's going to have changed. How to import a JSON file in TypeScript? Oh, you can just import it directly? Okay, that's quite cool. The joys of not having types. You can just do anything you want. Okay, so let's try this. So if I do, what's that going to be? /events /order confirm .event.json. Order confirm .event.json. And let's actually just try console.log data. That's what I actually see what I get. Okay, now how do I run a specific test? How do I run a single test? Jest-t. Okay, let's try it. npm run jest-t. Is that the name of the test? Package npm run test. Okay, npm run test -t. Files checked. Test files to ignore. Interesting. So is it because integration test npm run test -t? It's interesting you say that, Emmanuel. So TypeScript is where I started, but actually, maybe next week, I'm going to be doing a stream with Java. So I've got a service as part of this bigger application. So the whole recipe service, the whole recipe backend is written in Java, and I'm going to be looking at adding caching and doing some stuff with serverless and Java, some Fargate, some Lambda, some caching, probably Memento for some caching. So yes, many demo projects are in TypeScript. This demo project is in some .NET, some Node, some Java, some Rust, some Go. There's going to be some more stuff coming in the future. But for the minute, yes, this is TypeScript for today. But in the future, this will probably be different languages. I might try and switch up every week, actually. Do a Node, then a Java, then a .NET, then a Node, then a Java, then a .NET. Maybe we just start throwing Rust everywhere and we rewrite everything to Rust. Who knows? So how do I make this test run? Maybe is that what I need? npm run test. Hey, there we go. Cannot use import statement outside of module. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Out of the box, just Babel. Just cannot use import statement outside of module. But it's not I use import everywhere. JavaScript is so confusing sometimes. So, what am I doing up here? I'm using import up there. What happens if I just do npm run test? 2 failed. Did I break something? Authorization. Let's just comment out because these tests did work previously. Why am I still getting 2 failed tests? I've only got 1 test. Oh no, I've not. I've got many tests. Okay, what's failing here? Async function authorize a test. Unexpected token at port 8. Authorization. No, let's test 8. Why is that an unexpected token? Okay, there's some weirdness going on here because this worked the other day. Cannot use import statement outside of a module, but then why does everything? It does not like this at the minute. Okay, let's try something different. Let's get that. Three failed, 1 passed. Okay, 3 passed. This is a very secret key. Please don't use it anywhere. Okay, what failed? Source. So my JS tests passed, but my TS tests failed. Okay, so where is my? I normally have like a jest config. Jest configuration. Configuring jest. I'm sure I've seen like this configuration file should simply export an object. Okay. What do I need to call it? Jest.config.json. Options. Okay, this looks. Just.config.js. I only want module file. I only want JavaScript files. Automock. I only want JavaScript module file extensions. Is that what I want? Yeah. Module file extensions. Let's just say JS. Test. Okay, still failed. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So now my integration test. So I just need to compile things first. So if I package.json. So I'm going to do TSC and jest. Okay. And if I go back to my integration tests, uncomment that. And I actually quite like this because this is actually going to use JavaScript when it runs in Lambda. So actually compiling things to JavaScript and then executing them isn't necessarily a bad thing, I don't think. So npm run test -t integration test. Ooh, what's happening? Okay, so that's still failed. So let's get rid of that. See what happens. 1 failed. Cannot find module. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. now we are getting somewhere. We've got tests that are actually running. So does it need to be that? Cannot find module from tests, integration tests. So is it going to be like that? Okay. Do cd tests. I feel like it should be something like that. Cannot find. Why is it? Events. Order confirmed. Event.json. That's definitely right. Okay. Obviously being an idiot. Import JSON file to. Actually, I don't even need to do this, do I? I'm being an idiot. Let's just publish an event. Let's just go event to publish equals da. And then let's just get a little bit crazy. We'll just hard code it. We'll just make it look like we want it to. And actually, this could work better because then I can dynamically generate my order identifier. And I'm already doing some UUID stuff in here somewhere. I know I am. This took me a long time to get working. UUID 109 in my JavaScript file. There we go. So I want to import UUIDs, and I'm actually going to generate a brand new UUID as my order ID. So then I've got a dynamic order identifier. So that means I know when my test runs if the actual order I'm looking for actually made it all the way across. And then if I go console.log event publish, let's just see what that looks like. And I can run my integration test. One failed. Oh, because I'm still trying to import the JSON file. Goodbye. That seemed too good to be true. Oh yeah. npm run build. npm run test. Hey, one passed. And then I've got my actual event payload there. My items are an object. Okay, let's then try and actually publish this. So const publish results equals event. Oh wait, event bridge client. Oh, I got this weird, weird syntax for doing this. But I've got this somewhere else here. Event bridge event publisher. Const command. I'm just gonna copy that and paste that here. So got our put events command, and then json.stringify. Stringify is such a cool name for something. Event to publish, and let's just actually check what that looks like. Console.log json.stringify event to publish. And then we're actually going to publish that. So the detail needs to be order.order confirmed v1, and my source needs to be https order. What was that actually? Event buses rules order.order confirmed.v1. I think we've got, and then the source needs to be, because remember, we're just simulating. This is a completely separate event bridge that we've created on the fly. So actually the fact we're publishing random events into here doesn't matter, because we're going to be the only service that's interested in this event. So we've got our dynamically creating our event to publish. We're going to log it. Then we're going to publish it. And then I'm just expecting true to be true at the minute. And let's just log actually console.log eb result dot failed entries. Let's just have a look if there are any failures. npm run build. Don't want to get this weird failure every time this happens, but it seems to be doing stuff. And npm run test. And that is going to fail because region is missing. Of course it is. Export AWS region equal US1. I think this might still fail because I don't think my credentials are set up correctly. But let's see. Could not log credentials from any providers. Okay, so I'm just gonna move that over there for a minute. Move that over there for a minute. I'm just going to generate some temporary credentials from my SSO. Don't want you all seeing my temporary credentials now, so let's just do that somewhere else. Copy that, paste that into my terminal, and then clear all that. So because when this is running in a CI/CD pipeline, the actual pipeline itself is going to assume some temporary credentials. So all I've just done there is generated some temporary credentials from my SSO and just set my local environment variables to be them matching credentials. So now I've got some temporary credentials inside this terminal window. I could have set up my default profile. I could have done a whole bunch of different things, but that's just what I've done for the purposes of this demonstration. And then if I go npm run test, run my integration test, this should now, okay, so it published. That's good. So that's what's actually got published. There was 0 failed errors, which is good. So if I come back over to here now, we should theoretically get some trace information in just a minute. And actually, if I go to Postman and get my new orders, I should have something. I've only got the one order, which means I've not got any. Got my get new. So my event actually hasn't made it, which is interesting. Oh, of course, because I'm publishing to the default bus. So here I'm using. How do I get the event bus name? Let's just hard code that for the minute. So how do I set it up in here? Integration test stack. Integration test. Const bus name equals const bus name. And that version is, so if you think about like a local development environment, local development flow, you're going to have all these things set up locally. So actually reusing that same commit hash environment variable. And earlier on, if you didn't see, I set my commit hash to be JE. So when I run the CDK deploy, that's going to use JE, and then I'm going to use that same thing in my tests. And that also means when this runs part of my CI/CD pipeline, I'm also going to get the same commit hash for my bus and everything. So I think this will be okay. So let's just set my version there. I'm going to publish this event onto busname. And then let's go npm run test. So that's published. No failures again. Let's hit my API endpoint. Still nothing, but that just could be a timing thing. Still not getting any trace. Aha! Oh wait, no, that's me hitting the get new endpoint. Oh wait, some stuff's happening. What's happening here? What's that post doing? What is that doing? Socket hang up. Excellent. That's not relevant, James. So why is this not working? So we're publishing an order confirmed event to orders.plant-based pizza. And we're publishing kitchen-service.je, which matches rules. Kitchen-service.je. So we're publishing it to there. And we've got a source of orders.plant-based pizza. A source of orders.plant-based pizza. and a detail type. Order confirmed. So the event's being published. Let's just improve this error message. Published EB result. EB result dot failed event count. Published to bus name failures. Hopefully that should be known. So if I hit that again. Oh, you're an idiot, James. npm run build. Okay, now we've got the real version. I need to figure out how them TypeScript tests won't work at some point, but let's just try that again. So that has now published to kitchen service, no failures. Hitting my new endpoint. Hey, we've got a new order. Woohoo! So we've got a new order now, which also should mean that we have some traces. Cool. So we've got some trace information. This is that's a hefty cold start. So we've got some trace information. So we've got our event being published onto our test event bus, and we have it being handled, and we know it's hitting our API because we can run the API request manually. So we need to work out to make API call to check event, to check record hits database. So there's a couple of ways I could do this. So I could actually make an API call to the actual API endpoint, but then that would mean I'd need to authenticate somehow, and I can't be logging in on the fly. Okay, let's just for a rudimentary quick implementation. Let's go DynamoDB client equals new Amazon DynamoDB client, and then I'm actually going to create so somewhere in here adapters. I've got a kitchen request repository. I'm going to create a new kitchen repository equals new kitchen request repository. I'm going to pass in my DynamoDB client, and then I need to make up my table name. My table name, I think, again, comes from something dynamically created. It does. Cool. So I can create that. Move my version higher up. So I've actually got now the same repository that my actual application code uses. So then I should be able to say const order equals await kitchen repository dot get new, and then order. How do I do a contains? Order dot find. Order dot includes. It must be order dot includes. Order equals order dot JavaScript skills fall down. How to check an array of objects contains value. 2011. Gosh, that's old. Something like this. R dot includes. Aha. So we want to do const order in database equals orders dot includes where my order identifier is equal to my order identifier. It's kind of weird. Okay. I need all of the. I don't want to define every property. Must be a. I'd even simply use the sum. Aha. That looks better. R dot sum order dot order identifier equals the order identifier. What does that give me? It's a Boolean. And then I expect order in database to be true. So what are we actually doing here? So we're going to create an order identifier on the fly, and we're going to publish an event onto the event bus using that randomly generated order identifier. Then we don't need that console log anymore. We're going to publish the event onto the bus, and that's going to use a test event bus that we've created as part of our integration tests. And then we're going to check using our actual database repository, if you will. We're going to check that order actually exists in the database. Now, I do expect this to fail. npm run build. Remember the build, James. That should work. I want to change that back. Package.json. Test. I want to do test and no, TSC. But then it's going to fail the TR. I need to work out why that's failing. But anyway. So now if I do npm run test, I'm expecting this to fail, actually, because it executes so quickly. And because we're publishing to EventBridge, and this request has actually got to go from EventBridge to SQS, from SQS to Lambda, it's not making it all the way through. It's making it all the way through. It's too slow, basically. So my test is going to execute immediately. It's immediately going to check if my order exists in the database, and it doesn't at this moment in time because it's probably still in the ether of AWS managed services somewhere. So what I'm going to do, how do I do a sleep? How do I do a sleep in Java in TypeScript? Thread sleep TypeScript. How to implement? Set timeout. I don't want to do that. Surely there's a better way. I mean, that looks messy. 2016. That's why. 2023. Oh gosh. Okay, we'll use this custom function to do this. Seems a bit excessive, but there must be a better way of doing this. There must be. How to implement sleep function in TypeScript. This feels messy. Feels messy, but anyway, we'll use it. So after we publish the event bus to the event bridge, I want to do await sleep. I want to sleep for 5,000 milliseconds. Wait for 5 seconds before continuing. I should give things time to run through the bus. Build it again, James. Dun, 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 dun. Run the integration test. So this should now wait, and then still fail. The timeout for a test is 5,000 milliseconds. How funny. Okay, let's switch that to 3. I think 3 seconds should be enough for that throughput. So let's just try 3,000. Oh, failed. Oh, it still failed. Too long. Sleep, set timeout, resolve. Okay, add a timeout value to this test to increase the timeout. How do I do that? Test did not. The first argument is test. Timeout in milliseconds. That's the third argument you can pass. Okay, so there. Timeout. Let's go 10,000 milliseconds. 10 seconds. I've added a timeout value. Have I added it to? No. Wait, sleep. Add a timeout value. This is a long running test. Test. Name function timeout. Interesting. Oh, remember to recompile the code, James. Remember to recompile the code. That's going to work, isn't it? 10 p.m. npm. I need to figure out why that isn't working. That's a job for another day. Okay. Let's try that again. Hey, and this time we pass. So because now we have got the sleep, so we're going to wait for 3 seconds. We're going to give 3 seconds. We're going to wait 3 seconds before we check to see if the order has actually made it to the database. If it has, which it has, that's fantastic because it's going to work through that time. So just to do, this could be a flaky test if it takes longer. So there are ways we can get around this. In the past, we can do like to do implement a while loop to retry a few times to allow for slow throughput. So I'll get to that if we have time. But you can actually do some kind of while loop. So you check 3, 4, 5 times with maybe like an exponential back off in between to make sure that the processing has had time to make it all the way through. Again, if we look at our trace information, we should have got a whole bunch more traces, which is cool. Nice. So we've now got an integration test. So now that we've got a reasonably simple test defined, let's actually add this to our CI/CD pipeline in its current form. So I'm going to need to go back to my terminal, right back up to the top level directory, and open up my GitHub Actions. So GitHub, and I've got build kitchen services. So all this action is doing at the minute is simply deploying direct to dev, and it's using the CDK deploy base with node. So I'm first going to have to add an extra parameter here for stack name. So because I've now got multiple stacks in the same CDK project, when I actually run CDK deploy as part of my CI/CD pipeline, I'm going to need to specify the stack that I want to deploy. Let's just jump back to my... Oh, it's not going to work. And the name of my stack is... Where is it? Bin kitchen.ts. It's just kitchen stack. Where's my other VS code? So I'm going to have to do CDK deploy inputs dot stack name. So now when that deploys, it's going to use the stack name, and then in my top level workflow, deploy kitchen services, I'm going to need to pass in a stack name, kitchen stack. Okay, so now I've got my deployment. Now we need to actually add the integration tests. So let's do integration test. And I've got some ones I can probably already use here. I think this is one for .NET Core. Let's have a look. Okay, I don't know what that is. What is my .NET service using? Build base, integration test with testing for it. Integration test. Okay, so let's just duplicate that. I said duplicate that. There we go. Integration test. Integration test node. So what do we want to do? We don't need to install the .NET tooling. We don't need to install the trace. We do want to configure credentials. We do want to install the CDK. We don't need to log into ECR. To set the commit hash. So this is how this is going to work. If you've been following along all the way through and you've seen that commit hash variable that we were using that I set to JE when I was running it locally, that's how this is going to work. As part of my actual CI/CD pipeline, you can actually use this little snippet of code here to parse the actual commit hash and generate like a shortened commit hash, which is what we're then using to grab the build version and the commit hash and all that other good stuff. So now we've got setting all our variables. That's all fine. So here we go. So CDK deploy. So I'm going to CD into my infrastructure folder, and then I want to do. I also need my stack name again. So I'm going to do a CDK deploy, and I'm going to pass in my inputs.stack name. So I'm going to deploy my test infrastructure stack. Don't need a Docker compose because this is all. And then I want to run my actual. Do I have got npm install here anywhere? Yes. Then we actually run our integration tests. So I think let's just leave all that in for the minute. I want a pipe. I want to do cd cd integration test folder. Yeah, cd into my test folder. Cd inputs.integration test folder. I want to run an npm install to make sure all my dependencies are installed, and then I want to run that exact same. Copy that. Should that work? Let's just do an npm run build npm run test. We don't want to check the run images, don't want to compose. Then we want to actually tear down our test infrastructure. So we do cdk destroy. So we're going to on the fly here. Let's have a look what's happening. So we're going to check out the code, configure our credentials. We don't need .NET. Let's just get rid of .NET. I don't like getting rid of .NET, but we'll do it. So we're going to check out the code, install the CDK, set up a lot of environment variables, deploy our test infrastructure. Then we're going to run our actual tests. npm into our test folder. Then we're going to turn always. This is quite a cool thing in GitHub actually. Whatever happens anywhere else, always run this step, which means we're always going to tear down. I don't want that dash at all. We're always going to tear down the test infrastructure. Okay. So then we're going to, in our actual integration tests, let's just grab a copy from our build order services just to speed things up a little bit. So this is going to use integration test node.yaml. Doesn't need anything, but our deploy to dev, we don't want that to run unless there's been integration test. The service name is kitchen service. We don't have a Docker compose file. We do have an integration test folder, which is source plant-based pizza.kitchen.node. Source plant-based pizza.kitchen.node. And our actual test infrastructure folder is the same. And then we also need our stack name, which is kitchen.node bin kitchen integration stack. Okay, so we're gonna have a look. We can run our integration test. Yeah, that looks promising. Let's see what happens. Link password removed. That looks good, I think. Add integration tests to node service. Okay, so when I push that up to the repo, that should just go off. And if I open up my workflow runs, yeah, immediately fails. Excellent. The workflow is not valid. Build kitchen services. Input stack name is required, but not provided while calling build kitchen services node. Integration test node. Stack name. Stack dash name. Stack dash name. Update. Workflow input variable. Okay, we are off and running with our integration tests. Let's see what happens. And while that's just running, let's go and have another look at what exactly. For a minute. So what should happen is this should then go and run. It's going to deploy our integration test stack. It's going to run this test. Commit hash is going to be set. Okay, let's see what happens. Yay, immediately fails. No such file or directory. CD source. Would help if I could spell. Where is my Mac toolbar? Come on. Okay, you don't want to appear? That's fine. We'll just reopen you that way. It seems I can't spell. Build kitchen services node. I'm just doubling everything up. Cool. Update file paths for kitchen service. And then we push that. So that should mean we hit our workflow again. Hopefully this time we get something that looks something like something that should work. So it's trying to deploy the test infrastructure, which is promising. Oh. Ha. Maybe this just needs to do integration test node. So when I come to actually run CDK deploy, I think I can just run an npm install. Let's just copy and paste that. Install all. Install pen. I want to cd into the folder. Install dependencies. CD into the folder and then just run npm install. So I want to just install all my dependencies, which means I don't then need that there. Ensure dependencies are installed. And we're going to push that out. And that's not going to rerun because I'm doing stuff. So kitchen services node. Let's just manually kick that off. So the workflow triggers are only set up to run if I change the actual application code or the workflow, not the actual shared workflow. So hopefully if you are watching along, you should actually, if you go and have a look at the GitHub repo, you should be able to grab a lot of these, like the ones that aren't service specific. So like the CDK deploys, the integration tests, these should be reasonably generic. You should be able to just grab and copy these and use these as you see fit. So let's have a look now. So it's going to CD into the folder. It's doing something. Okay, so this is promising. It's actually deploying stuff, which is always a good sign. Let's go and have a look. Cloud formation. Nothing yet, but it's trying. It's trying to assume credentials. I've never understood this message. It's saying it's proceeding anyway, and then it's proceeding anyway to do this 100 times. I'm going to proceed anyway, but I'm going to keep trying over and over again, even though I'm proceeding anyway. But I'm going to retry. Very odd. Very, very odd. But I've seen this numerous times. Maybe I need to go and update my ION stuff somewhere. Not a topic for this live stream, but it's maybe a topic for later. Come on, CDK, you could do it. You said you're going to proceed anyway, so why aren't you proceeding anyway? That's the other thing I probably need to do actually at some point. I think the name of my stack needs to be dynamically created as well, actually. There, creating cloud formation change set. This is promising. So what that should mean is that that stack is going to be upgraded, which we're going to need to change in a second. But that should... Let's have a look what's happening. Change sets. Hey, update in progress. So our CI/CD pipeline is deploying things, which is promising. So while that's just deploying, one thing I'm going to change just very quickly is when I actually create my stack here. So this is the name that it's going to use for the stack, but I actually want to suffix that, which might just break a lot of things. No, because this is separate. So I'm going to grab in my actual integration stack, where I grab that version parameter, which is that one there. I'm actually going to pull that up into the top level. Paste that in there. And then when I actually name this integration test stack, I can actually call the stack. So that means when the stack gets created in here, it'll actually suffix that name on the end of it. And this is actually really useful if you've got multiple developers working in the same account. You've got multiple CI/CD pipelines all running at the same time. That can all happen, and they'll all just get the separate stacks. They'll all get separate stack names. It does mean that a CDK deploy command will need to change as well. Let's see if we can do that. What's going on here? Still updating progress. Okay, so yes, we're going to create everything brand new. Of course it is. So with that, adding the version number, that means if we come back into this, the integration test node, when it does CDK deploy, we're going to need to... The stack name is going to need to include that. Because if I come back locally and do... Nope, not loyalty points. We're talking about kitchens, not loyalty points. If I do a CDK synth, a CDK synth, this should mean that I get two workflows, but one of the stacks is going to be called -J. Yeah, kitchen integration stack -J. So whenever that CDK deploy runs, you're going to need to include that suffix. But this does allow us to have separate resources. It's deleting stuff now, which is good. The moment of truth is about to arrive. Do we have working integration tests? Do we have working integration tests? Let's find out. Come on, are we on cleanup in progress? Yes, cleanup in progress. Let's just actually check them. When I'm creating all my resources, because the other thing this is going to mean is that I might end up with duplicate resource names. I can actually check this in the console, you know. So if I look at all my Lambda functions, and I look at my kitchen Lambda functions, okay, so yes, we've got it suffixes the name of my functions with the stack name, so they'll be okay. Let's have a look at Dynamo DB tables. Hey, would you look at that? I've got my integration test Dynamo DB, which actually should mean if I go to my event buses, I should also have dynamic kitchen service. So one of the things that's really cool about this is that because I'm suffixing with the commit hash, I can actually go and relate that straight back. So my last commit was 10 minutes ago. My last commit was 2B84001, which then matches 2B84001. So I've got that same consistent. That should also mean in my observability, if I go and look at my Lambda functions again, actually, kitchen integration. What's going on? Ah, the integration test failed. Damn you. What failed? Oh, it failed because I ran npm build. Okay, why is it trying to build my node modules? Is that in my TS config? exclude. Why am I excluding node modules? So why are you trying to build node modules? TSC command trying to compile files in node modules. Specify. Types. So will this work locally? npm run build. No. Oh, but it's trying to do my. Yeah. So why is it trying to? Exclude node modules. So why is it trying to type routes? Exclude node modules. Do I need the slash? Nope, exclude node modules, which is there. So why is that? npm run. Nope. npm run tsc. npm. Yes, we're trying to build my node modules. We're so close. ts config.json. It's got the right name. Compiler options. Exclude. ts config compiler options exclude being ignored. Ignores all dot. Skip lib check. Okay, that looks better. Now we've only got. So let's add our types for jest. Okay, let's get better. I cannot find name test. Try. I want to compile types jest. Hey, now we're getting somewhere. So now we've got that, we'll compile. So actually now I should be able to update my test code package.json to do tsc and npm run test. And that should do my compilation and then run my tests. It's going to run all my tests. Unfailed. Why did that fail? Maybe because I'm not waiting long enough. Let's just change that then. Let's make that absolutely positively sure. Let's sleep for 10,000 seconds again. And update my timeout. 15 seconds. npm run test. 8, 9, 10. Get out. Oh, but then I think a lot of stuff's been deleted actually, because that test ran. So let's just actually let this drop down to 6,000. Let's that just run now. Back to my integration tests. Experiment test -t. Let's go again. Update compilation. Commit messages are fantastic. And we'll push that up and we'll see what happens, because my workflow should rerun, which is cool. And then we sit and wait for this to execute. The joys of playing around with CI/CD pipelines is that you end up waiting forever for your CI/CD pipelines to actually do anything. See what else is going on in the world. So the CE is installing. Okay, so we're deploying the test infrastructure, and this time this should fail, obviously. Okay. Let's just source in. Where did my other VS Code window go? There it is. Include node in there as well. npm run build. Include node types in csconfig. Try again. Let's have a look. I don't want to come and look at this repo now. You see an awful lot of hey, failing test. Yay. Okay, so that's gonna now go off and build, hopefully. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Still in dependencies. What's oh gosh. Leaks memory. That doesn't sound good. In flight. Where's that come from? Anyway. That's one for later. So what is happening this time? Okay, that's promising. It's transpiled. We've got the weird trying again, proceeding anyway, but not proceeding anyway because we want to just do it. That should mean I get a CloudFormation stack with a different name when it eventually decides it doesn't want to try again. What's going on over here? I really don't understand why it does. Actually, I need to go on. Current credentials not be used to assume. Okay, let's just try and go on. Sort this out. Whilst that's deploying. Let's do it in a window though. Let's go and have a look at roles. So that is response that allow trust relationships. Allow assume role. But it already allows it. Edit trust policy. AWS on. Then I need about deploy. That's not the one. It's called GitHub, I think. GitHub role. There we go. Copy that on. Dun, dun, dun. For anyone confused that I'm talking and nothing's happening, I'm doing this on my other screen. I suppose there's no good reason for me to be doing this on my other screen, actually, but I'm just updating the CDK deployment role. So I've got a stack set in my CloudFormation organization that rolls out a GitHub Actions role to all of my AWS accounts inside my personal AWS organization. And that's what all these pipelines use. But it looks like my CDK role, it doesn't have permissions to assume my CDK role, weirdly. So principal, I don't really know why I'm doing this over here, but let's do it over here anyway. And that is that is that. Okay. So that now update policy. So that should now be allowed. Oh, things are happening though. So let's go back to CloudFormation. Cool. So we've now got a stack being created with that dynamic suffix. We should also have an event bus with that same suffix. And I think we're going to have a whole bunch of DynamoDB tables because I think it's set up to retain. Yeah, so I've got a whole lot of test DynamoDB tables, which is one for another day. Let's create the stack. That's promising. Where has my... Let's see what happens. The test failed again. Damn it. Requested resource not found. Unexpected token. Run integration tests. We're so close. We're so close. The tests are running though, which is good. So let's integration test. Is this still working? I run it local. npm run test. True, but it's using a different name now, isn't it? So what is this actually? Test. So it's running my because my jest config isn't in the that's annoying. Git add. Git add jest.config.js. I need to add my jest configuration. Add jest config to GitHub. Got a git ignore to ignore all JavaScript files, which is helpful sometimes. Sometimes, as of right now, not so helpful. 2 minutes. Let's see what happens with this last test run. So we've added the jest config. It's going to tear this whole stack back down now. So there is an argument to say that actually you could have, as part of the integration test, just have a single stack and only let, so way in GitHub Actions to only let one instance of a workflow run at once. So I can only say only one workflow could be running my integration tests at any one time, which means then they'll start to stack up behind each other. And that would mean that I wouldn't need to spin it up and tear it down again after every run. Personally, I quite like the extra, how long did it take to deploy that last one? Like the extra couple of minutes. How long did that actually take to deploy? It took 3 minutes. I'd rather wait the 3 minutes for it to deploy a fresh stack every single time and let it, to make sure I get a completely empty DynamoDB table. Some people would prefer to use the same stack, so you save yourself a little bit of time there. But I'm a fan of having a completely fresh set of resources every single time. Okay, let's just see. Add jest config GitHub. Where is this up to? I'd like to see these run, but we close the stream. So while that's just running, actually, one other thing I need to do. So because I've got these separate stacks and I've got a completely separate DynamoDB table. So in the CDK, you have this deletion protection. And the deletion protection as a default will be set to, it'll be set to always keep the stack. No, it's not that. I'm sure it's that retain. What is it called? There's an option for what to do when. I'm sure it's deletion policy. Table. Is it in here? Table dot. I want to be able to delete the DynamoDB table, basically, whenever. CDK deletion policy destroy. How does removal policy? Removal policy? I thought that's what it was. There it is. Removal policy destroy. So what I'm going to do is, in my test stack, really importantly, is every time, as a default, it's going to retain the resource. So anything like DynamoDB tables, S3 buckets, things like that, it will retain the resource as a default, which means if you accidentally delete a stack, you don't accidentally delete all your data. For this integration test stack, of course, I want to destroy my DynamoDB table every time, so I don't end up with this huge buildup of DynamoDB tables, like you can see there. So where's this test infrastructure deployment up to? Let's have a look. It's about 2 minutes in, so it shouldn't be too far off. Running the tests. Let's see what happens. Creating the event source mapping. Creating the queue policy. Come on. Cool. So now we're running the integration tests. And let's see what happens. TSC and jest integration test. transpiling all my code. It says, we still failed. Requested resource not found. So it's not found the DynamoDB table. It's not found the DynamoDB table. Interesting. Kitchen dash integration dash BF2. Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm going to have to close the stream here, annoyingly. But I think I know what the issue is. Come on. The issue is that in my integration test, I'm using that commit hash, but there's this weird thing in GitHub Actions that you've got to reset commit hash. There it is. So I've got to set that commit hash as part of the actual environment variables for that specific step of the workflow. So now that I'm setting my commit hash there, update integration test to use commit hash. That should now push that out. That will now give us a working integration test. Thank you everyone for following along. If you've enjoyed the stream, please reach out. Please let me know. And I'll be back again same time-ish next week. Probably do some Java next week. Probably look at some serverless Java, some caching, maybe some Memento. If you're not familiar with Memento, it's an awesome caching service. Completely serverless. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, and I will see you all next week.